Carolyn Dube here. Today I'm going to be playing with some color, shocker. I've got my Blast from the Past Xyron 850 here with some cardboard that I cut off of a box. Putting some permanent adhesive all on one side of it. My wonderful old Xyron 850 holds up extremely well and still does a great job like it did when I got it. What I'm doing is basically getting adhesive on one entire side of the cardboard in one fell swoop. Fastest way I know of to get adhesive to cover an entire something, and it is extremely adhesive, which is what I wanted. I've got all these tapes that I've made from my recent workshop, Transform Your Tape. Little shameless plug here. It is open right now, and in this workshop we make use packing tape, washi tape, and artist tape to make them our own. So as I'm adding all these different things on here, different tapes have different levels of stickiness. And what I've got here, I want to stay here. So that's why I'm using the adhesive in the Xyron to just make sure everything is permanently adhered down. And so I'm just going to keep filling this whole thing in until I've got this whole sheet filled in with all these wonderful stripes of color and pattern. Once it's all filled in, then I'm simply going to take my scissors and trim up the ends and edges. And of course those little bits can be saved and used for other stuff too. So I wanted to turn this into a die cut. So here I am just taking my easy way of measuring to make sure my cardboard's as wide as it'll fit in my machine. Because don't you know it, I have an old machine. It's a wonderful one, an old Big Shot. Still works great, so I keep using it. And couldn't decide which die cut I wanted to do, so I decided to go with this tree one first. And the cool part is it cuts through all the different layers of tape, all the cardboard, even with all this detail. I would never want to cut this by hand out of cardboard. Love my die cutting. And so now you can see how much pattern I've got because of all those rows of tape. Well, I'm not done yet because I think I can get the other die cut off of the top. So I'm going to cut this part off and then go and try and make the arch out of it. And it's going to fit, yay! So here are the 5 pieces that I got out of that one piece of cardboard. And instead of being just one kind of thing, I've really got 5 very different things that I can use here. This gives me some choices for what I want to do on the canvas today. And I'm going to pick the one that talks to me the most right now. And the other 4 are going to go on my countertop. And then when I am sparked by them, when I need them for something, when they'll fit just right in another project, they'll get used. That might be this week or it might be 2 months from now. Oh, that tells you how long the stuff has been sitting on my counter, but we'll just pretend I didn't say that. So I decided to go with hot pink, so I painted my entire canvas with one coat of hot pink, and I thought I did a pretty heavy coat of it. Turns out not so much, because even now it's dry, but I can still see the streaks where I didn't cover it all the way. So I can either paint this over and over again until I get it perfect, and that's not going to happen, or I can find a way to make it so nobody knows what's underneath here. Alright, so I got out my Doc Martens Bombay inks. Oh, not Doc Martens, sorry, those are shoes. Dr. P.H. Martin's inks. And I'm just kind of spreading them around to create some color on it. I'm using a catalyst tool here to just sort of spread it around. When it dries, it won't be quite as noticeable. And I'm just sort of smearing a bunch of ink around. Not really thinking too hard about it. Just really want to cover up the imperfections underneath it. Now what I'm going to do is grab my little Dilutions journal and just stamp with a rubber stamp in that ink, and what I'm really doing is pulling off some of the ink and creating some just sort of ghost stamped images all around on the canvas. Not a lot of it's going to show up, it's just going to be very subtle. I know, shockingly, I'm going to do something subtle. But in the process I end up with this great art journal page background that's made waiting for some time when I decide to play with butterflies and that. So here is what the canvas that I'm working with, and I've got this drawer full of chipboard letters that I bought on clearance at some point, so I bought a whole bunch of them. And I don't know what word I'm going to go with. A word has not popped out to me yet with this tree. So I'm going to play around and see what kind of calls out to me. W, that's too big, so I know I want to go in the smaller letters. And as I'm looking at this, I'm kind of thinking maybe a word strong or grow or something along those lines. But nothing feels right yet, so I'm just going to start digging through the letters and see what comes out. Oh, there's a K. Yeah, let's see what I can make with that. And so I'm just kind of digging around, and I found the word no, and I don't know, the knowledge thing didn't strike me, but then all of a sudden, now did. And I love how now feels with that. You know, like now is the time to plant your roots. Now is the time to grow strong. Now is the time. So this word is the one I'm going with. So I have way too much of a color addiction to leave those letters white. So what I'm doing is using a future art journal page here just to catch my spillover paint. I mean, why waste paint? Let it add color to it. And so I'm just kind of painting over the letters with acrylic paint, and then I'm going to set them up in the corner to dry. So I wanted to add a little bit more to these. They were just a little too plain for me. So I've got this great stencil by Mary Beth Shaw over at Stencil Girl Products. And what it's going to allow me to do is use the Inca Gold, which is a metallic paste that's very creamy. And I'm just going to smear it in there. And I'm going to end up with these great metallic stripes in there. Not a lot. It's just enough to make it interesting. So it's not just that flat blue paint. And I'm just going to keep going over each one of these until I've got all three of them with some stripes of color on them to go with the blue. I should say stripes of metallic to go in the blue. And I know you're thinking, how can she put more color in it? But yes, bright orange is coming next. Dylusion soaking this piece of paper. And I'm going to put this piece of paper right under that die cut to really make it pop and stand out as if I wasn't having that happening already. But still not enough orange for me. I'm going to go back and use some orange Viva Decor Inca Gold and put that right on there. Just little touches of orange on there. And a big, huge thank you to all the people that are helping support me and my art through sharing, tweeting, helping me get the word out. I truly appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. So I kept looking at it, and this thing kept nagging at me that it just didn't have, it was missing something. And I finally realized it needed some more orange. So I was a little scared to actually put the orange on here, and I thought, that's kind of crazy. This is a canvas, it's paper. Worst thing that happens is you have to add more layers to it. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this. I am going to add that orange on there. And I'm actually pretty happy with how it added to it. It was, for me, a more subtle way of getting color on there, because sometimes I do have that, you know, jump right out at you kind of color. But to have that subtle bit around the edges really was very nice. So all that's left to do now is glue it down, and I just put some tacky glue on there generously. I want to make sure all those little bits stick down, but in the process some of the glue does squirt out, and so I just use a Q-tip and wipe that up, and nobody will even know that it ever squirted out. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I'd love it if you take a peek over at my Transform Your Tape workshop. There are over 2 hours of video in this workshop showing you how to transform purchased washi tape, how to take packing tape and make it into something amazing, and how to take artist tape and turn them into works of art using a lot of supplies you probably already have. I've got links down below, of course. I'd love it if you take a look and check out my new workshop.